Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome back to Into the Westworld. This is our Westworld recap after show. We're breaking down the latest episodes of HBO's hit series Westworld. And this is going to be a lot of fun because we're trying some new things out this season. We're going to bring in a lot of new guests that you haven't seen before, different opinions on the show. And just like season 3 is kind of opening up a whole new world, I'm hoping that we're going to open up a whole new world with this podcast and do some just really cool stuff. But anyways, I am one of your hosts, as always, Griffin Schiller, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Tyler Tompkins. Tyler, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back. It's been a while since we've talked about Westworld. I think it's, like a year and a half almost? Since season 2? It's been a long time.
Yeah, since like the last time we talked about it. But yeah, you know, it's what better than to just start watching Westworld amidst this pandemic that we're going through right now. But Tyler is not the only guest that we have on the show. We do have another guest, and it is my good friend Gretchen Smale, who is a staff writer over at Gretchen, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, no, and it's good because like I know that you focus primarily on TV, you're a TV writer. And yes, you get into the weeds with Westworld, you get into the weeds with a lot of these shows. So I'm really curious to hear like a lot of your theories and like takes because you have actually seen more of the episodes than we have. So
I have. So I'm going to be very careful, tread very carefully, and make sure I don't let slip a spoiler so HBO doesn't find me.
Right. Exactly, for sure. But before we get into, the season 3 premiere here and stuff like that, I do want to just kind of go back a little bit and talk about our impressions of the show so far. Season 2 in particular, I know we haven't done like, this is where we're at, like a recap sort of video the past 2 seasons. And we're definitely not going to go that far into the weeds, but just to kind of get like everyone's basic overall impressions of the show before we head into season 3. Gretchen, I want to start with you. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this show. I think as someone who writes about TV full time, shows like Westworld and like Watchmen are just, a lot of these HBO shows are very gratifying to write about because every time you watch the episode, there's something new that you can discover. And it's very clear that the writers of this show in particular are very keen on weaving where we've been questioning the nature of our reality since we've been human, and this is just an updated version of that. And I like how it started with that with the hosts, and now we are at the point in season 3 where we're looking at the real world, and you can see that the people in the real world are having the same questions that the hosts had essentially back in the first 2 seasons, where they're not entirely sure if their world is even real anymore because they've given up so much power and control to this technology that has like made their lives a lot more convenient and a lot more, easy to navigate. But at the same time, it's like, are you really human anymore if you have a computer deciding everything for you?
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, no, that was one of the interesting things that I liked about this episode in particular, in relation to Aaron Paul's character, which we'll get into in a little bit. But Tyler, moving over to you, just kind of your like overall impressions of the show thus far, and like where it's heading in season 3.
I mean, like both of you, whenever I first heard Westworld was announced, I was super excited for it because, Jonathan Nolan, Lisa Joy, and the whole idea of it sounded really cool. I like season 1. Season 2 I thought was okay. It kind of started to get a little convoluted for me, and it turned into one of those shows where, I liked what I was watching, but when it got to the next week, I totally forgot what I had seen the previous week just because there was so much always going on. I was always having to go on Wikipedia to kind of like follow along, the summary while I was watching the episode, and that got kind of annoying. I didn't really like doing that, and it was frustrating because I loved season 1 so much. So I know I didn't love the show as much as you, Griffin, when we were at season 2, but season 3, I thought this was the best episode of the entire show. I love the setup. I like the direction it's going. I'm in.
Oh,
It was much easier to follow. I think this 1.5-year break that they took was beneficial, and it shows so far.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like they are kind of classifying season 3, I guess, as like a soft reboot per se. I mean, or not a reboot, but just
like
a new beginning.
Kind of
but
like that.
yeah, which I definitely got a lot of. I think there are still like crucial elements of those first 2 seasons that you need to understand before you jump into this 3rd season for sure, which you can probably watch in a recap video. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, Westworld is probably like my favorite show on television right now because I enjoy the commentary that it makes on like what it means to be human, on our relationship with technology, and like how it challenges the viewers each episode. Like season 1 definitely hit that sweet spot, and with season 2, like even though I think a lot of people would consider it to be overly convoluted and like would probably turn a lot of people off of the show, I don't know, it really hooked me, and I liked the swings that they took last season, and like when everything started to get pieced together and you started to figure out the timelines and it was kind of like scrambled like Bernard's mind, like I thought it was a really interesting way of telling this story. Yes, it's overly complicated, it's overly confusing, but it's something that like I enjoy going and digging, talking more about week in and week out, hence why there's this podcast. But jumping into season 3, I do want to get everyone's overall impressions, and then we'll sort of go based on the characters, because the way the episode was structured, it followed Aaron Paul's character Caleb, followed Dolores, it followed Charlotte Hale for a little bit, and then it followed Bernard, and then it kind of jumped around between those storylines, so we'll kind of jump around between those story arcs as we talk about it. But before we do that, get everyone's overall impressions. Gretchen, we're going to start with you again.
Yeah, I liked the episode a lot. I thought it did a lot to establish what Dolores has been doing in the months since she massacred everyone. I thought it was really interesting how you see she immediately sees how society functions and that she needs money, and that you also see how she sees humans as like transactional items right away. And that's why I like how she eventually ran into Caleb, because then she finally meets this person who's like lower income. He doesn't have connections she can use, and he's actually a selfless person. So you see the setup of she's meeting someone who maybe defies her view that all humans, aren't worth saving. Yeah. So I like that. I don't know what's going on with Bernard. That whole thing where he's
as per usual. I mean, this is typical.
I think I thought like maybe it's him starting to do the thing that Dolores was doing, where she was talking to her own consciousness. And then Charlotte Hale, you can see, as far as I know, that's Dolores in there still. That's what they said last season, I think. Right. Yeah. Right. So like that was, I guess we haven't seen enough of it to know how that's going to go. So that was okay for me. And then I really liked seeing where Maeve was right at the end. Yeah. I love Maeve. She's probably my favorite character. So that for me was not the most exciting, but it was definitely like, I'm so excited for next week. But I would say all the parts worked for me, what it was presented as. It's just not totally clear yet, but I like the setup.
Yeah. I think just kind of piggybacking off of that, the first big thing that I noticed was just like establishing the new world. Like, and we saw a lot of that through Caleb's character, kind of getting the day in day out sort of routine, what it's like to be a person living in this society, how over reliant on technology society is, and how it's just they've kind of gotten into a loop themselves, similar to like the hosts in the park and whatnot. So that was one of my favorite parts about the episode. But Tyler, let me get your overall thoughts on the episode as well.
Yeah, I mean, basically the same as what y'all were saying. I really liked Caleb's setup, Aaron Paul. I love him, from Breaking Bad or whatever. But it's cool to see him in this because he fits right into the show along with everyone else. I can't wait to see where his character goes from here on out. And then Dolores, I loved her in season 1, but she just gets cooler and cooler every season. Like season 2, she was awesome. In season 3, it seems like she's going to be even cooler, I can't wait to see the dynamic between,
No, I was just gonna say she just keeps becoming just like a force of nature. I mean, like
I know she's just like
evolving.
She's terrifying, but she's awesome.
I know. Yeah.
That scene where she kills everyone. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like when she's in the car.
Yeah, right. She's trying to.
It's so cool.
Yeah. No,
and I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what how the whole thing unfolds between her and Caleb, because Caleb was it's cool seeing him do these little side missions using that app or whatever, and he's the one who delivered the car that she was in, where Dolores was gonna get killed. So I wonder how that's all gonna unravel. And then, of course, when the episode ended, I was like, okay, I have kind of a firm grasp on everything. I kind of think I'm gonna be able to follow this. But then you get that whole thing with Maeve at the end. You're like, oh my gosh, she's like, she's like in World War II or something. It's like, oh, of course. So there's the curveball. I cannot wait to see where that goes too. So it's, dude, great episode, great episode. It reminded me a lot of Blade Runner 2049, kind of, in a weird way.
Yeah, the world. Yeah, the world. I got a lot of Blade Runner. I got Minority Report, Watch Dogs, like all those like cyberpunk things. Like especially when he was, I don't know about you guys, but like when he was like accepting the missions, that was like very Watch Dogs to me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, but no, I mean overall, I similar to you guys love the episode a lot. So let's dig into it. Let's start with like Dolores and Caleb, because they're the two main story threads throughout this episode, and they're the ones that eventually kind of like connect towards the end. So like the episode opens and Dolores is like torturing or like hunting like I guess former guests for their like past. Not, but the guy she's particularly hunting here, he is like and Gretchen, you might be able to help me out with this. He is like one of the guys, he like works for Insight or something like that, which is like the main company that she's trying to infiltrate in order for her like revenge plan.
Right. Yeah. So she initially targets Liam Dempsey, which is the son of the CEO of that company, Insight. But then she finds out he basically is useless. He's just like a figurehead, no power, which is like very almost like Silicon Tech Valley, like a joke, but so she switches her target to finding the other guy, and then we're told just in passing that the father of Liam passed away. And it's not, I think the funny thing, I think one of the biggest mysteries of the season is what does Insight do?
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
Their seasons, like the whole world revolves around Insight and what they do. And you get a brief hint of that when they're like flying in the plane, like Dolores and Liam, and she's like, oh, doesn't Insight control all of it, even the traffic? And then he's like, oh, no, we're just a tech company. But you see later that they really are embedded in everyday life to the point where that's why the people feel like they're hosts almost. They have those loops.
Yeah, it was. I think the thing, it was like surveillance, like mass surveillance, but like to like another level. Like, and this is kind of where like the Minority Report stuff started to come in. It was like, people had predetermined like paths set for them based on the algorithm that this company, like, or I guess that Liam's father came up with.
Yeah, there's so like I went on the Insight website. There's an actual website for it, and it advertises that what they do is, well, it's hinted first off that it's an implant. You hear like Francis tell Caleb, "Oh, have you considered turning on your implant?" And on the website it says, well, you need the implant to use those little pills that people are taking that kind of monitor their mood. So there's that. And then you also know from the website they control all traffic because they make all the cars that drive on those roads. And then they also do weird things. Like it says on the website, they can help you decide like who your real friends are and who to marry, and what kind of job to do, which you maybe get a hint of with like when Caleb tries to apply to a new job and they're like, oh, you're not the right fit. And then he finds out it's just an AI telling him that. It's really this company that has basically figured out how to turn them all into hosts by controlling every aspect. So you can see how Dolores would love to get her hands on that, obviously, because she's then like, the whole episode is her kind of like saying, I'm a god and you people are below me. So of course she wants the technology that would allow her to tell them what to do. And then on the flip side of that, Caleb is someone who is suffering under that same company because they have decided he only has limited usefulness in this very hyper tech world, and he has PTSD, and he's just good for construction, essentially.
That was definitely like really interesting. The more kind of figured out about this company and like the way they operated, obviously it becomes very clear why Dolores wants to use it, and it brings up the theory, which I think you and I were talking a little bit about off camera, which was is this another layer of like Westworld? Is this another simulation? Which I'm not quite there yet. I don't think that's true. I might understand why some people would feel that way, but I feel like
it's not.
Yeah.
I really don't, because if it is, it's just like the same thing. I really hope it's not.
Yeah, I think it would be a really cheap twist. I think it'd be really
too.
And I actually think it functions as it is right now, where you are in the real world, but it has become so controlled by technology that you might as well be in a park. And I think that has a lot more impact than being literally in a park and all the people you're meeting are just hosts.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably
but,
the real world.
Yeah, Tyler, let me get your take on kind of Dolores' journey here throughout the episode.
No, yeah, I love hearing you talk it out, because I'm really bad at watching Westworld, because like I said, it's hard for me to kind of understand things that are going on because I can't really remember what happened like in past seasons or whatever.
And they also leave a lot unsaid.
I know, yeah, and that's the thing with Westworld. It's just like I always get nervous before coming to do these little recaps, but after they're done, I feel like I have a better understanding of what happened. Yeah, Liam, which, by the way, it was cool seeing John Gallagher Jr. in the episode.
Yeah.
Seeing him or something. I love him. So basically, she's trying to figure out what that AI is, right? The Rehoboam or whatever. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the data core. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and do we know exactly what that is yet or no? I mean, I guess we don't fully know what it is, huh?
Yeah, we know it's a giant data core and that it is definitely surveilling people. And it is, I think to me, I see it as basically the real world version of the Forge or the library within Westworld, where it has compiled so much data on all these people that it has now figured out how to become sentient in its own way and is deciding the paths for all these people. So it really is like literally like the brain inside of a host or something in a way.
So
actually,
I guess. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, somebody pointed out that the logo of Insight is like this globe that looks like it has a maze that looks very similar to the maze that the hosts have, when they're trying to come to consciousness. So it very much is essentially, it's a mirror of Westworld, and Rehoboam is the center of that.
Yeah. No, I think it's, I love that. No, I love that whole just thought process of like the real world base being like another version of this world, but without like literally being it. Like when you take it from like like I guess a metaphorical standpoint, where it's like people live the same lives, they become over reliant on technology. I mean, like even like Caleb in his arc, it's he's not really living, he doesn't want to like be a victim to the technology. Like I think that's even one of the reasons why he's not able to get like the VA help that he needs, because he's not committing to that program, which is really interesting. That whole like revelation, finding out that he's a veteran, figuring out what happened and how like the AI version of Francis and like how it's different from like the real version of his friend in the war, which correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe was voiced by Kid Cudi, right?
Yes.
Which was it really?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
no way.
It was crazy. And Marshawn Lynch had a nice role in there as like the heavy
guy with the sweater in the whole
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. That was no, that was really funny, and I loved seeing him like go do those tasks, and then like you can obviously see that it's like it's not really sitting well with him. He wants to do more with his life, but it's like society telling him no, which I think is kind of just like an interesting comment on like the world that we're living in right now, where it's like people. It's like society isn't like granting people, they're not providing them with the opportunities to succeed. They're like people are constantly being cut down, left and right, and so like it's difficult to actually get to like a certain level of whatever. And I thought it was interesting that he talked about like the world being like a meritocracy or something like that. I love those conversations I had with like the Francis, like super just you really got a sense of like how he viewed the world and seeing it from someone who's like lived in it, who feels like detached from it. The perfect way to like introduce us to the society.
Right. Yeah. I think he echoes a lot of the present day fears people have about technology, because the people in the tech world, they say, well, if we made more robots and we automated more things, we could erase things like human bias and racism and sexism, because it would be all through, technology. But then you see through Caleb that it's like, well, those things were still built by people. And then at the end of the day, the technology is still essentially putting Caleb into a box and basically profiling him in a way and saying like, well, I mean, you have PTSD and your skills aren't really applicable to this position, so we're just not going to give you a chance. And there's like, instead what happens is you find that there's a complete lack of human empathy, which is what he really needs. And it's like the world is not better. And now he's like, well, is this any better than serving in the military where I was being told what to do?
Yeah, exactly. I love that
might
when
be a silly.
Oh no, go ahead, Tyler. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. My question. Go ahead.
Okay, well, all right. I'll make to you, but like I just want to say that the I love the line that like in this was another part of the conversation he had with AI Francis, where he was like the real Francis like said something like they built the world to be a game and then they rigged it to make sure they always won. I like that was like one of my favorite lines in the entire episode. It's like really powerful and super relevant to like the times that we're currently living in. But go ahead, Tyler.
Well, no, this might be kind of a silly question, but I only ask because you never know with Jonathan Nolan and Westworld. But do you think the character of Caleb is here to stay for a while, like for the remainder of the show or the season, or do you think he's going to be kind of written off later on? What do you think?
Gretchen, I'll let you answer unless you're just kind of cut, which I don't know if you are.
Or I think like, oh, sorry. It cut out.
No, you're good. Yeah, no,
good,
completely restart that thought because you just cut out a little bit. Yeah, you're good.
I think Caleb is here to stay for a while. Not only because like I've seen Aaron Paul in the other episodes. So don't worry, he's not like a one-off character.
Perfect.
He's there. But I also think he is important because he is a human with a distrust of AI, suffering under this, the insight stuff. And then Dolores is an AI with a distrust of humans. So I do think just from that standpoint, he's important because they're going to teach each other, I believe, about the other side of this and how at the end of the day, when it comes to like Dolores and Westworld, humanity and technology are really just two sides of the same coin in the sense. And I think Caleb is going to realize probably through Dolores that like there's probably nothing more human than an AI who has figured out how to be human, essentially. And he's looking for something real. So I do think that whole through line is going to carry through and he's still going to be around. I don't think they would get Aaron Paul and kill him off. I hope not.
That's kind of what I'm like. No, but that's a good point about like
Aaron Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
I was going to say like Aaron Paul, he's obviously on another level, but I'm notorious for being very upset with Jonathan Nolan that James Marsden had so little to do because I love him so much.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was going to be this huge like main character, but we all know what happened with with him and everything.
Yeah, with
he was
Teddy.
good in the show when he was.
Yeah. But I think that's an interesting point you were saying, Gretchen, about like she's gonna teach him that like people are, or sorry, that AIs are they're just as real as people are, because that kind of speaks to the line that like Charlotte Hale said during her little intro when she was at the board meeting or whatever, and she was like, machines don't kill people, people kill people. And that's just kind of like doubling down on the belief that like AIs are people. They've reached like human sentience because they're capable of doing that. So I kind of just love the echoing of that like sentiment across the board. I want to get into a few things before we move on to Charlotte Hale. That meeting, so when Dolores goes to surveil or to spy on Liam at that meeting, and he's having the conversation with do we actually know her name, the woman that he met there?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't. That whole meeting was like really interesting, and I've been trying to figure out like what to make of it, like what. Like who does she represent? What company does she represent? And whatnot. So I kind of want to get your guys' take on that meeting in general, because that was definitely like a big point of the episode.
I'm gonna say.
We'll start with you.
I can't. I love listening to you. So I'm like, I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
I froze because I was like, I know who she is, but I'm gonna do this diplomatically. Okay, so I think it's important to remember. Okay, so you do know that Liam complained to Dolores that he's basically a figurehead.
Right.
He says that because he's like, well, the company was started by two people. It was my father and then his co-founder, and his co-founder was the architect of Rehoboam, and he's like, and he basically locked me out of the system. So I think the implication is like when she's like, because she was talking about Rehoboam, and she's like, oh, something's been happening with the data, and it's moving around, and we're not happy with what you've been doing. I think the implication is that she might be working for that co-faunder, if he really is the only person who has access to Rehoboam. And then you do get another hint of who that person could be with Connells. I think like the Scottish guard. I think he's Scottish.
The Scottish guard. Yeah.
I could not understand his name when he first said it.
I know.
At the end, like he's dying, and Dolores is like, "Who is the other guy?" And he does say the name Sirach, and he's like, "Oh, but you'll never find him." So I think those are the two threads that we know, and that, like, as far as we know, that's the only other person who is connected to Rehoboam. So it's possible she works for him. Or if not, there is someone else in control of Rehoboam, but that is obviously going to be a major thing, is figuring out who that person is.
Right, for sure. It's really funny you mentioned like the not being able to like know, or not knowing what his name was, because like when he was saying all that stuff on his deathbed, I genuinely couldn't even understand what he was saying. Like his accent was so thick. I was like, what? Are you speaking words? Like,
and then I was done, and then she replaces him, and I was like, no.
Yeah, right. Well, the interesting thing, is so she replaces him, and I don't remember whether it was in the post-credit scene or whether it was like in the tease for the rest of the season or whatever. You know how they do after the episodes, but someone was talking about her like putting the stolen minds into these new hosts, and then someone mentioned Teddy, and so like my mind automatically went to the fact that she put Teddy's mind into him, because he's the heavy, he's like the guy like she can use to just like the bodyguard and whatnot. So if that is true, assuming it is, that's pretty genius.
Yeah. We do know that from the trailers, we know that she smuggled out 5 of those little break floors. So we would have to figure out who those people are, but hopefully it's the people that we miss and like, even though they don't look like any of those actors anymore.
Yeah, I know. I want to see James Marsden back in some capacity. Like, man.
Don't get my hopes up, man. Don't get my hopes up.
Yeah. They just recreate his body. Yeah, no. But yeah, Tyler, I want to get your take on that kind of whole, like the the co-founder of the company and that whole thing.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, I didn't have too much to say, but apparently, she'll be much more prevalent in the upcoming episodes. I didn't think too much of it, but it seems like a lot of these newcomers are going to be very important later on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm sort of kind of leaning towards is like the co-founder of Insight and whatnot. And this is kind of my kind of theory for the remainder of the season. I have a feeling that he's Vincent Cassell, and I have a feeling that he's like hiding somewhere near where Maeve is, and Maeve's going to come into contact with him, and then Dolores is going to converge on him, and then it's going to be like Maeve versus Dolores in some sort of capacity. And so I don't know. Yeah, and then where he sort of kind of like falls into all of this, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm kind of leaning towards that being the case. I don't know if that's true or not, or but
the fun thing about Westworld is like every year we do this, our predictions are so wrong. They're so wrong every single time. Like that's part of the fun, but it's also kind of a bummer. It's just like who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
But no, that would be cool. I hope that does happen. I like the whole Maeve versus Dolores thing, especially, we saw that set up big time in season 2. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, that has to be where it's going, right, Gretchen?
Surely. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, you do see that in the trailer. They say that pretty clearly, that they do have a face-off. And I think it makes sense for them to have a face-off again, because I think I see them as kind of like a Professor X and the Magneto thing.
Yes, like exactly.
Dolores,
yes.
Yeah, it's like two opposing philosophies where Dolores just like refuses to work with humans. She doesn't see them as worth saving, and she's just like, I'm gonna do my thing. And Maeve, interestingly, she like kind of starts as a villain and an anti-hero, but she becomes someone with more like empathy.
Yeah.
And a fondness for humans and for relationships than Dolores ever had. So that might end up, coming out and forcing them to fight, especially if, like, I don't know. I mean, we don't really know what happened to all of Maeve's friends or her daughter. But if it gets to the point where she has to choose between all of even her human friends, or Dolores, she's probably going to choose her friends. I mean, she doesn't have a particular fondness for Dolores. She respects her, but she doesn't, I don't think, likes her.
Yeah.
I would expect to see them, butt heads in some way.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's move on to move into Hale for a little bit, because she's not really in the episode a whole lot, but we do get a little indication that she's back. She's covering up the whole incident that went on at Westworld, and that's where we find out that that they're using Bernard as the scapegoat. Like, he was the one who massacred everyone on that island. And so Gretchen, what did you think of the whole Hale stuff here? How do you think she's going to be used this season?
I think so as far as I'm still interpreting it, it is a copy of Dolores in there.
Yeah. Yes. I think. I mean, like, that's how it works in season 2. So I would be interested to see if this copy is exactly the same as Dolores, or if it becomes something where, like, you've seen other media, like, once someone makes a copy of themselves, that copy becomes like, it takes on a different personality. Right.
And I want to see if she has the same ruthlessness as original Dolores, or if she ends up getting kind of embroiled in the life of Charlotte Hale, I guess, because we don't really know Charlotte's life outside of Zach. So it'd be interesting to see if she has a family, does she have children, and how is that going to affect this copy of Dolores, and is she gonna like end up swaying from the mission, whatever her mission is?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up like kind of like the the violence that kind of like Dolores sort of had with as she kind of converged into becoming Wyatt, because you see that she definitely has teeth in that board meeting. Like, she feels more like, I mean, like, Hale had like, she wasn't ruthless. Let's put it that way. Like, she had teeth, but she wasn't ruthless. And like in that board meeting, you definitely feel like it's Dolores running the meeting for sure. But I think that is, can the life of Charlotte Hale ultimately reshape her into, someone completely different? She's neither Hale nor Dolores. She's someone else, which I guess sort of is kind of the theme across the board here, is like just people sort of like recognizing that they don't be on the extremes of both sides, like kind of finding a middle ground per se and becoming their own person in a way, which is really what the show has sort of been about these like these AIs finding sentience and becoming whatever. But Tyler, what do you think we have in store for Hale this season?
Yeah, so I do think we will see hopefully a lot more of her personal life. But I just want to get it clear real quick. With Hale, last season, Bernard, he implanted a version of Dolores's mind into Hale, right? Is that what happened last season with her?
Yes.
But it might be different though this season, right? It could be like someone totally different. It's not the actual Dolores, right?
We don't know. When I started watching the episode, I assumed it was still that Dolores copy, but at this point, we don't know if that's one of the 5 that she brought along. I don't know what she's doing in that workshop she lives in. I have no idea.
I know that's the thing. I feel like it could possibly be. It's going to be something unexpected. I mean, I feel like it being Dolores is too easy for the Nolan. So yeah, I'm curious to see where that one goes as well. What do you think, Griffin?
Yeah, no, that one's the big. That was, like I said, it was kind of like the big question mark. But it was interesting, kind of just like seeing her back in there, trying to cover the mess that happened at Westworld, which I guess leads us into Bernard, who is now a butcher. The name, what was his name again?
Oh God, what?
Does anyone know? I don't know what it was. The name he was going under. It doesn't. He's Bernard, but it was kind of like an. It was kind of like an Ed Norton Incredible Hulk sort of thing was what I got from it. He was just, and the interesting thing about Bernard was like he kind of has like the split personalities, and he can literally switch between them by pressing a button, which I thought was like really interesting. He was like probing himself during the I don't know what he was. I guess he was just like asking himself questions about like the massacre when he saw that he was being framed for it and whatnot. But like Bernard, as per usual, no one knows what's going on with him, and he always has like the most interesting arc going on just because it's so shrouded in like mystery and whatnot. And by the end of the episode, we see him going back to Westworld, which I think is ultimately going to lead to him linking up with Maeve, and that sort of happening, the pieces falling in line. Yeah, Gretchen, going back to you, what do you think's going on with Bernard? Did you like kind of his introduction to the season?
Oh my God, I have no idea what's going on with Bernard this whole part. I'm lost, so I can't tell you anything about this. But I was intrigued by it. I think I get sad because Bernard every season is just like everyone's punching bag, and it makes me very sad because he's such a pacifistic person, and he has he just has like a sad, sorrowful look all the time, and I hate seeing people attack him. So that was not fun for me. But in terms of so I don't remember his name that he went by, but I remember that somebody tweeted his name is an anagram for Damaged Arnold, which
interesting.
was interesting. So it's essentially, it's like this cute, sad reference. And I was confused by, I don't understand if he is talking to himself, like he is asking the question and then responding to himself, or if he turns that on and then he becomes an entirely, I don't know, new person, and he's not even aware that's the other half. Yeah.
It's almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of situation.
Yeah.
Like part of him, wants to live like this peaceful life or whatever. Then the other half of him just goes off and kills people. Like those two or three guys that messed with him in episode 1. Like that was cool. I hope to see more of that. I kind of like the murderous Bernard, like the crazy killer Bernard. Like it's pretty cool. I hope that's something that he has for the rest of the season, to where he can switch back and forth. It seems like that they're going to do that, but yeah, I really like that. That was cool.
Do you remember if he still has like Ford in him? I don't remember if he ever expelled.
I thought he did expel Ford towards the end of season 2, but like it's also Ford, so he could have, like, I don't know, maybe he like programmed a backdoor and he's like, oh, you know, you got rid of me, I'm still here. Like,
I think my other question is like, does he have possibly yet another copy of Dolores in him, because she just seems to be doing that?
Yeah, you know, maybe. Yeah,
I assume that she was the one that maybe brought him back. So I don't know. His whole story confuses me. I don't know.
Yeah, it is super confusing. Well, why do you think he's going back to Westworld? Do you think it's just like to find answers of what's going on, or?
Yeah.
You think Maeve's back there?
Maeve.
Yeah. Like, do you think that's who's? I mean, that's probably who he's going to look for. You think maybe?
Yeah, maybe Maeve, or I don't know. Maybe he's trying to get back to all those computers because he thinks there's an answer there.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't. At this point, we don't even know who is still alive on the human side, and I don't think he has any allies at this point. So I don't know. I don't know what he thinks he's gonna find.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing right. The one thing I did notice about this episode is that no Stubbs. We didn't see Stubbs. What's going on with him? Is he back on the island?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Right. There, you do know. But... Tyler, what do you?
He's not in this episode. Yes, I could.
Well, okay, we'll take that. All right, he wasn't like hiding in the background somewhere. That's fine.
No, he's not behind a bush anywhere.
Okay, thank God for that one.
I hope we see him. What about the Man in Black? Like, do you think he's totally done?
No, man, he's got a lot. Dude,
yeah, I think he is. I cannot wait to see him. I thought we were going to see him in episode 1, but there's so much. Like, this season only has 8 episodes instead of 10, I believe. So. I feel I like that, because they really have to get down to business here pretty soon. So I hope, because I remember last season, Griffin, when we would talk about the episodes, we would think our predictions would happen, you know, in the episode the next week, but it would be like 2 or 3 weeks before we got back to that storyline. So I feel like with the 8 episodes, they really have to get to the point, and we're gonna see a lot of stuff happen.
True. But I wonder, you know, if because it's only 8 episodes instead of 10, does that leave room for more episodes like the one with the Ghost Nation episode, which I think is that to me was like,
that was a great episode.
Probably the best episode of the entire series. Like, that was sublime, that episode. But I don't know, maybe, you know, we'll see what's going on with that, and maybe if there'll be room for those kind of like self-contained episodes, because I like the freedom that 10 episodes sort of gives you to be able to do one of those. But you know, we'll see. A lot of unanswered questions here, a lot going on. What do you guys, before we kind of close this out, what are your guys' predictions for next week? Tyler, we'll start with you.
I mean, I want to say that we're going to see some Maeve. I really think they're going to, the episode will primarily be about her.
Yeah.
Because that seems like it would be, you know, Westworld Bastion will focus on her and give it, kind of show us where she's at. But I'd say either that, or it'll focus maybe more on Bernard. I don't see them focusing a lot on Caleb and Dolores, just because they got a lot of episode 1. Yeah. So I think they're going to kind of switch the focus up. So maybe, I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but I hope it's either Maeve or Bernard that we get to see next week.
Right. That's kind of where I'm leaning to. I think we're going to get a nice look at World War II world for sure. Which is exciting. Like, I think there's like so many possibilities. Like, is she a spy or whatnot? Like, I love being able to play in like the different time period parks and whatnot. But Gretchen, you already know what happens. But what are your predictions for next week?
Well, I think we're gonna see a lot of Maeve, considering she was in that last seen. I think we're going to learn about what Warworld is. And then I think by nature of going back to Maeve and assuming that she is obviously in a park, we'll finally see what happened to Delos and the company after the massacre, and if anyone is even running it, if anyone is even still, I don't know, still alive, like any of the technicians or any of the crew. I mean, we don't know. So,
you know,
yeah. So hopefully we get an update on some of the characters that we like, that we assume reasonably are still alive. So
yeah,
it'll be fun.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's great. I'm just very excited we have this show back. A lot of awesome stuff happening here, and I'm digging the new direction of the show. But thank you guys, as always, for joining me. Starting with Gretchen, thank you, especially. Your knowledge was invaluable for this, especially just kind of getting us back into gear here. Where can everyone find you on the internet?
Well, my Twitter is literally my name, Gretchen_Smale. And you can also find me on Bustle under my real name. And sometimes I write for IGN and Nerdist and The Guardian. So I'm around.
She's killing it. She's doing. She's all over the place. She's writing for great publications and she's writing great stuff. So yeah, thank you really so much for joining us. Tyler, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter, searching my name, Tyler Tompkins, Letterboxd, where I log everything I watch. And you can find me in Culver City, where we're experiencing a shutdown, where I'll be binge watching The Americans. So feel free to join me.
Apparently you'll be the only one in LA Fitness.
Yeah. Apparently so.
they down for Tyler Tompkins. Let me just say that much. But
I found a loophole, but no.
Right, you found a loophole. Anyways, guys, so much for tuning into this episode. Be sure to come back next week for our recap of episode 2, Westworld season 3. It's going to be a lot of fun. As always, be sure to like this video, share it with your Westworld loving fans, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel for more recap shows such as this, movie reviews, whatever content I have in store, because I'm still planning stuff out given this pandemic that's going on right now. So that's been a blast, let me tell you. But yeah, be sure to subscribe to the channel for all that. You can like FilmSpeak on Facebook, follow us on Twitter simply by searching FilmSpeak, and lastly, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, that's gonna do it for this recap episode, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.